This presentation will focus on 3 key visualizations associated with gender from a social, economic and geographical perspective. The reason behind our choice of topic is because we feel that it's something of significant relevance in today's society, as well as being something that deserves a more general awareness in terms of inequalities. The first thing to establish in this presentation is what the purposes of visualizations are, and this is what some of the experts have to say in general terms. Visualizations can be used for problem-solving purposes, to prove a point to the rest of the world, and to inform decision-making, which is more associated with a commercial perspective. The next thing to address is what makes an effective data visualization, which is explained by Edward Tufte and William Cleveland. Tufte's main focuses are on the representation of numbers, clear and detailed labeling, showing data variation using normal units, using 2D instead of 3D representations, and not using data out of context. Cleveland's principles, on the other hand, are less specific. This is the first interactive visualization to be discussed, which highlights some of the key associations with global female inequality. The next slide will look at some of its main features and general strengths and weaknesses. This type of visualization is called a radial chart, which is essentially a bar chart plotted on a polar coordinated system. Visually, this chart isn't the easiest to get your head around, but looking at it more closely, there are some key strengths to consider. One of the first things to note is that it's used data from reliable sources such as the UN and World Bank, which makes us feel more obliged to trust the information that's being presented to us. Another thing that radial charts do well is showing multiple sets of data or variables so that we're able to make comparisons. However, the bar lengths are prone to misinterpretation because of the angle of the chart, and they're only appropriate for specific and mostly qualitative data. On the whole, this visualization is primarily used for aesthetic reasons, which fails to meet Tufte's criteria, but is nonetheless pleasing to the eye. This is another interactive visualization, which is a lot easier to make sense of, in comparison to the radial chart. At first glance, you'll notice that instead of using the stereotypic blue and pink for male and female, McCandless has used more neutral colours, which could be perhaps a powerful message in itself. It also combines qualitative and quantitative information, which shows a variation in data. Already, this falls under one of Tufte's principles. This is what you call a dumbbell dot plot, which differs slightly from the regular dot plot because of the line that connects the 2 points. This is an effective way of showing data as it emphasizes the distance between variables, or in this case, the gaps. This has a powerful impact on its audience because, as well as the distance being emphasized in this way, the whole meaning of the gender pay gap becomes more pronounced too. However, although there wasn't as much to criticize about this particular visualization, one issue we came across was that some points have a tendency to become slightly clustered and overlap each other. Furthermore, it could be argued that there's perhaps too much data, hence the visualization being split into 2 slides. Overall, however, the clarity of this visualization is one of the fundamentals and would fall under William Cleveland's clear view and understanding that's needed to produce an effective visualization. This is the last visualization, which looks at gender from a geographical perspective and undoubtedly is the most bold out of the 3. This can result in a mixture of strengths and weaknesses, which will be explained in the next slide. This data visualization is known as the cardiogram, of which the main focus is the number of hours of men working in either unpaid or domestic labour. One of the biggest problems here is that although visually this diagram is very colourful and eye-catching, there aren't any numbers or figures to offer us more context. The level of simplicity is easy on the eye, but more information is needed. There's also the danger of some regions appearing quite distorted, which is the main issue with cartograms. To conclude this presentation, it appears that accuracy, simplicity and clarity play a fundamental role in determining what makes a successful visualization. However, it could be argued that we make it successful is largely based on personal preference, as our brains perceive things in different ways to each other.